Guys, so today we're going to talk about how to find your tribe and build momentum. This is the third video in the How to Market Yourself Authentically series, and it builds upon the last two. So if you haven't seen those ones yet, please go back and watch those first. Now before we get started, I wanted to give you a brief introduction about me. I'm Lindsay, I run Ask a Working Writer, and I am a full-time freelance writer who's passionate about working from home, being self-sufficient, and helping other people find success with freelancing, however they define that. Now let's get into today's topic, building momentum. First, I just want to say, this is the part where it gets hard. There's no instant payout and no easy formula. So the first 2 weeks might have been quick wins for you. You get to think about your business and your message and take immediate action, and it feels really good. And this part is more of a long-term payout. So the first thing we need to do is shift our mindset to start thinking long-term. And this is the part where often people struggle because, again, those first two steps are a little bit easier. And this is the hard part. And this is where, if you follow through, even though it's hard, then you can build a community and get that desired action you want, whether it's booking a new client or having more sales of your ebook. But if you don't follow through, then you're going to stay at the level where you're at. So today we're going to talk about what momentum is. What are some of the roadblocks to be aware of when you start marketing so you don't get derailed from building momentum? How to use social media wisely, because many of us don't, and then we're just wasting time. And how you can rinse and repeat the strategies in here to get momentum going for your business. So this quote sums up the way that I approach momentum and the way that I recommend you approach it incrementally. So instead of hoping that, say, your next blog post is going to go viral and you're going to get a ton of attention and new clients from it, and then getting super disappointed when that doesn't happen for you, I want you to shift your attention to cultivating good habits that you can do once and repeat and build up regular and sustaining good habits. And over time, these are going to take you to that next step. So you're building consistency and momentum into your business, and you're always working hard toward your next step. But in the meantime, you're focusing on that connection to your tribe, who are the ones who are going to sustain you and cheer you on and grow with you. So on that note, another reason to take it incrementally is to be mindful that you are stretching and growing your business by taking these steps. And so sometimes that means you're going to have to push through some fears. These might be fears that you're not good enough, or you don't have the right type of knowledge, or you're not likable enough, or famous enough, or whatever stuff that little voice in your head says. And this fear can stop you from building those consistent habits. We're in a moment right now when everyone in our society has this expectation of instantaneous gratification. I mean, just look at the president, right? But we're in a society where we have things like Amazon Prime, and then 2-day delivery wasn't enough. Now there's same-day delivery, and rather than waiting 5 or 10 minutes for the subway, we're expecting a lift to come to our door in 1 minute, and then stuff like this is just not instantaneous, tends to really frustrate us and get us going because we expect that it should happen overnight for us, and it's just not going to for most people. So whenever you spend a couple hours on something, whether it's a landing page or an ebook, and you don't get a new customer right away, it can trigger those fears for you that you're not good enough, or you didn't do it right, or it's not going to work for you. Whatever hangups you have that are holding you back in your business, this is where they're going to come up for you. And this phrase of connecting to your tribe and building momentum. So just remember that. I want to hold space for that today and remind you that it's okay when that kind of stuff happens. In fact, it's part of the process, and the best thing to do is just to ride it out and not let the fears sidetrack you from working toward your goals. And this is another way that taking it incrementally is going to help with your fears, because you're going to be taking it slow and making steady actions, and that is going to prevent you from feeling overwhelmed with everything. Because when we feel overwhelmed, it's easy to stop and step back from what we're doing or second guess ourselves. And that is where right away you lose any of the momentum that you've been building. Another way to stay focused on building momentum, if you're not doing this already, is to embrace your message and take direct action inspired by your message. Take yourself seriously. In other words, act like what you want to become, whether that's a full-time freelancer, but meanwhile you still have a corporate job, or a digital nomad, but right now you're still saving up that cash to find your adventure. Or if you want to raise your rates, then act like the kind of writer who would charge the rates you want. And stop saying yes to the projects that don't reflect your new rate and where you see yourself headed. You have to change things up to make room for growth. When you're letting the fears drive you, then they're going to hold you back and you're going to only do the things that you're comfortable doing. That might be something like starting a Pinterest board where you showcase your interests on Pinterest, but you're not going to take that next step and create advertisements or create products for your people, or writing blog posts and submitting them where you get paid an exposure and not taking the step of pitching publications that are going to pay you the rate that you deserve to be paid. And until you make that step to really put yourself out there, you're just going to sort of stay at the hobby level. And the hard truth is that's not the level where you're going to earn. Now, I'm not going to spend any more time today talking about the different types of fears that could come up because we're going to stay focused on building momentum. But if that is something that you would like to see more about, then just leave me a comment here or on Instagram and I'll put together something on that later. So the first thing to do when it comes to momentum is think about your target audience and where they hang out. So here we have an infographic with several social media platforms. So maybe your audience hangs out on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. You have to go where they are to find them. But you should also think about where you naturally gravitate toward and where you like to spend time, because you can't force a bad fit. So this infographic here shows a few of the popular social media platforms with their demographics. So let's just look at it and come up with some examples together. So let's say you're looking to network with B2B customers, then LinkedIn is probably a good platform for you to target because you can post helpful content or write articles and show thought leadership in your niche. You can use the platform to search for businesses that might need content marketers. But if you don't want to do that, or let's say you're already active on Twitter, then one thing to do would be to look for Twitter chats in your niche, which you could follow, contribute to, use the hashtags, and target customers and make a name for yourself there. Now, one tool I like that isn't really mentioned here explicitly is Facebook groups. So as an example, I do some personal finance writing, and so I'm in some personal finance groups on Facebook. Not because I want the personal finance advice or because I want to connect with people who could become my clients there, but so that I can listen to the conversation of the kind of people that are in my client's target audience. And then when my client goes to me and asks me to pitch some topics for their personal finance blog, then I don't need to spend as much time thinking about what might make a good topic because I'm already in on those conversations and I know the kind of things that those people are talking about. So just by being in those groups, it makes my research easy, and then I pitch ideas to my client quickly, and then they love my ideas and they think I'm a great writer, so it's a win-win all around. So read the infographic over and see what jumps out at you in terms of a good match. If you hate creating videos because you're an introvert or you just aren't that technologically focused, then you're not going to gravitate towards something like YouTube. And so even if that's where your audience hangs out, it's not going to be the best platform for you. So it should always be something that you can use comfortably so that you can use it consistently, which is what you need to do to build your brand. And I just want to talk about focus for a second. We've talked about choosing one platform. I'm not saying you need to only have one platform. You can choose a few places that you want to hang out and build momentum. So maybe you have a blog and then you're active on Twitter and Pinterest, and that's what you do. I recommend you choose one or a couple channels and stick with those until you feel comfortable with them, until you have a following with them and it feels natural to you to share content that way. It's better to start off small and build up than to start all at once on 5 or 6 different platforms and try to get that momentum going on every platform. So please just don't get caught up in feeling like you need to do everything. I promise you're going to get better results if you just take your blog and push it out on Twitter and you're active on Twitter with the hashtags that your tribe uses than if you try to do everything and you burn out. So now you know where you're going to look for your tribe on your platform. You've got your main message, and you've done the homework to figure out who's in your tribe and what you care about, your audience. So now, to get momentum, what we do is we take these elements together and we come up with a content strategy, which is essentially a guide to what your tribe needs from you and then how you're going to serve it up to them in an effective manner. We looked at some examples of this in the first video, but let's revisit it today so it's really clear. So maybe your tribe needs inspiration, and so you've got a Pinterest board that's just inspirational quotes to help other work-at-home moms. And so they follow you on Pinterest, they trust you, and when you have a product, like maybe an ebook ready to sell them, you can go ahead and do that. Or maybe your tribe needs action strategies, and so you've got, kind of a how-to blog post, or you showcase success stories of other people that are doing it really well, or you might share a personal story about an obstacle you overcame and how you overcame it, and then talk about how this lesson applies to their lives. So for example, that's the kind of content that I try to put on the Ask a Working Writer blog to help other writers find success. Now, just when we're talking about content strategy here, I want to talk about one mistake that I don't want you guys to make, and that is forgetting to speak to the values and needs of your audience, which is the kind of thing that happens when you create your message in a vacuum, where you get so excited to talk about your services or your products that you just don't connect those at all to your audience. I'm sure we've met these kinds of people at networking events and conferences, and you just don't want to be them. It's not going to be effective for you. So now that you've got the strategy, what you do is you just rinse and repeat. You keep doing that. So what does that look like? Well, you set a schedule. So maybe you want to blog once a week. Maybe you're able to blog once a month. I recommend doing it once a month at minimum, because if you do it less often than that, then you're just not posting often enough to get momentum. Now, if you have the time to blog several times a week, then more power to you, and you should do that, whatever works for you and your audience, where you're not going to get burnt out. If you have a small blog, then you might want to share your posts on Medium or publish them on LinkedIn. These kind of things get you more exposure, and they're also really helpful when you're searching for clients. You're trying to grow your blog because these platforms amplify your voice, and they might be places that people in your tribe go to discover content. When it comes to social media, daily interactions really work best, but that doesn't mean that you need to be active on platforms every single day. You can use something like Hootsuite or Buffer to schedule tweets to go out. I also like to use If This Then That, IFTTT, so that, for example, when I publish something on my blog, I use that If This Then That to connect to Twitter or to connect to Instagram, so that those contents also get an update with what I've just published. Now here, as we've talked about before, I just want to bring it home again, all the content that you publish should always be connected to your message and your audience. It should address a specific problem or need that your audience has, and it should offer support or insight to help them solve that problem. So right here now is where that work that we did in weeks 1 and 2 is going to help you know what you can say to your audience. So you don't have to spend a lot of time second guessing what might resonate with them, because you know you already did that work. So when you're showing up consistently and you're showing people that they're not alone and giving them actionable takeaways and inspiration, then they're going to start to look to you as a leader. So just to give some more examples, we talked about budget travel back in week 1. So something that might resonate with that audience could be sharing travel deals when you find out about them. It could be interviewing someone that you came across who financed their travel in an unusual way. Or it might even mean sharing some of the mindset shifts that you have to make in order to save that first $5,000 for a backpacking trip. And once you have that content, you just put it out there and you keep doing it, and you keep sharing, and that's really the gist of it. So that's where we're going to leave it today. There's one more video left, and that's going to cover how to bring it all home, creating products, building lasting relationships, and earning from your expertise. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you next week. If you've got any questions, find me online or hit me up on Instagram at Ask a Working Writer. Thanks.